VeeFam, what's up? We are back, and I'm so excited for today's episode. I'm joined by Mike and Luke from Bartbridge Clothing, and they're historic in the VeeFriends universe because they are the first VeeFriends collab to come from the actual community. And I'm sure you guys have seen their hats and all their good stuff. But so happy to have them on the pod. Can't thank you guys enough for coming on. And how are you, first of all?
Well, doing really well. I mean, we're we're in California, and we're in Northern California, and we're ready for spring to sprung.
Yeah, we're sitting here looking at a rainy cow pasture by the fireplace, and that sounds lovely, but man, it's getting a little tired. I'm ready for some sun. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's rainy here. Yeah.
But we're spoiled. We're used to, our winter is usually done by the middle of January, maybe the end.
Yeah.
I mean, we need the rain, but anyways, other than that, everything's peachy.
Amazing. Yeah, and you guys have definitely had your fair share of rain this year and this season, winter. Uh, I can't wait to get into Bartbridge and the collab, but before we go present day and forward, I always like to take a step back. Can both of you either separately or collectively just give me kind of a 55-second cliff notes on who you are pre NFTs and all of this, and maybe how you guys met each other?
Okay. Yes. I've been a artist, graphic designer of sorts for many years, and we met each other because I had an ad. This is, I don't know, over 10 years ago now. I had an ad on Craigslist for graphic designer for hire, and Luke was searching for such an ad, and he wanted someone to do some kind of Warriors themed designs, Golden State Warriors, but that didn't say Golden State Warriors. And so we did a couple of those and then realized we should also probably be friends for some reason. And, and so then that's kind of where our paths crossed. And then from there, we just started working on all kinds of designs, which eventually led into our hats, which are all the different cities. Mostly we started in the Bay Area here in California, and then from there ventured out, and then yeah, Luke was into Gary Vee, which led him into NFT world, right? And then from there he introduced me to that world, and now here we are.
Yeah. I think that sums up a lot of it. Basically, yeah, I knew I needed graphic design help to make anything. Um, and found Mike, and we've just been trying a lot of different projects. And the one that really clicked were the hats for all the small towns, and that's been just a great ride. We've been doing that, and then we would kind of flirt with a lot of kind of custom designs. A lot of people are asking if we can make hats for their businesses, their wineries, their car clubs, their schools, what have you, and we would do that every now and then. Um, just because it was kind of fun, a favor to a friend, or maybe it was cool for like to do a hat for a local brewery. But when Gary, I was always listening to Gary Vee. He was on the speaker in my car constantly when I was going to events to set up to sell hats. He means the world to me. Everything he said was just like so important to have in my ear, because it can be lonely trying to start a business, and having Gary in your ear, I think a lot of your listeners can relate to that. It really really helps. And so when he came out with VeeFriends, I was like, oh, I want to make VeeFriends hats. How cool would that be? And so we had the NFTs, which we had bought right when they came out. And so, I told Mike, I was like, let's go to VCon, and we're going to get to Gary Vee, and we're going to try to get him to notice us so we can make hats for him. And Mike was like, sure, whatever. All right. And then basically we did exactly that. I think you kind of heard the stories, but basically went to VCon, and it couldn't have worked out better. Like, it was within 10 minutes, he was wearing our hats. And we're like, all right, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, there you go.
First of all, amazing, amazing, and VeeFriends did do a fantastic kind of, I don't know, 3-minute video like behind the scenes of the collab, which is super cool, and I'll pin that up. Real quick, Luke, was this your first kind of foray in as an entrepreneur? Did you have any other businesses before this, or is Bartbridge it?
No, I mean, I think I was always flirting with the idea of wanting to have a business, and kind of feeling a little unemployable, perhaps, with my skill set. And it's hard to rewind and go exactly into the where I was at in my head, but yeah, it felt like it was inevitable, like the wanting to have a business. Yeah. But it's a lot longer and windier of a road than you ever imagined. Um, but yeah, it was definitely something that I didn't think I could be happy if I didn't have a business, basically. Yeah.
And I'll just say this, being as someone who's taken work from just random people, and you find all kinds of weird people on Craigslist, including myself. Um, Luke had one thing that I was intrigued about working with him was that he had so many ideas, and it was idea, and it was idea, and he wasn't afraid to just say, "Hey, let's just try it. Let's not worry about is this going to work? What are they going to think? Let's just get it out there and try it and go and try by error." And I really like that because even for myself, I would find myself kind of, I'm not sure, and then I would just let someone else pay me to do work for them, and he was great with coming up with the ideas. Very entrepreneurial idea man.
Yeah, the two of us definitely click. We like hip hop, so we like to kind of listen to, like, Outkast, but Big Boy, Under 3000, just like these totally different styles that come together, and when they click, it clicks. And I think that the two of us definitely feel that way when we're designing. We have a lot of fun. It's a lot of yes ands. There's no bad ideas. We feel super safe. If we try something doesn't work, it's like it doesn't affect. Our egos aren't crushed. Like, okay, I guess that didn't work. Let's try something else. Um, and it's something I hope everyone gets to experience at some point in their life. Just a safe space where they can express themselves and have someone there to help bring their thoughts to life. It's like it's the most fun ever. Yeah.
I love that. And, as someone that has been in business, not so much anymore, but with my wife, like, you don't know a lot of the intricacies and nuances of working, with one other person, like, full time on a business related matters. Like, there's a lot of things that you don't plan for until you're actually in it and dealing with it. So that's fantastic that you guys are just vibing like that. Before we go any further, Warriors has come up a little bit. Are you both of you guys legitimate Warriors fans, or are you the bullshit ones that Gary always talks about in his content?
Well, so me and Mike actually have similar origin stories in that we grew up rooting for terrible teams. So I am an original Warriors fan. I remember when we got Tom Gugliotta. Me and my dad went to the game, and I had a sign that said "Welcome Googs." We've had season tickets, um, for forever in our family. We're talking, Mitch Richmond, Latrell Sprewell, Mullen, through the Troy Murphys, the Montego Cummings. We drafted Todd Fuller instead of Kobe Bryant. I mean, we had so many bad
Oh, you're
years,
in it.
and then I ended up kind of moving outside of San Francisco itself, and I ended up buying season tickets to the Warriors when they still were kind of coming around, but no one really realized they were going to be this phenomenon they become. Because I just wanted a reason to come back to Oakland and see my buddies, and then those tickets basically turned into this asset of having tickets to the greatest show on earth, and they got really good. And they were so good. That was part of the reason we wanted to make clothing, because we wanted to express ourselves, because it was just the most fun ever. And just wearing, a throwback, you know, Chris Mullin jersey just didn't feel like that was really expressive of how much fun we were having.
Right.
So part of the reason we were making our own clothes. And then Mike has a similar story with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, so I grew up in my high school years and through my 20s right down the road in Sacramento, another historically really bad team.
Terrible.
Except for about 10 minutes in the early 2000s when they had C. Webb and Mike Bibby and those guys, and so
Peja.
and Peja. Yeah, there you go. Yes. All right.
I had some great game sevens. I remember. I remember as a kid watching like great game sevens, and probably around 1 or 2.
Yeah, they were really fun to watch, and I was even a fan before that when the Warriors. Well, no, I guess he went another route, but we had Mitch Richmond at one point too, and he was our highlight. So I definitely had a Mitch Richmond Kings jersey in high school when they were really bad. Anyways, but similar thing where just like rooting for this team, and now it's great. Looks like the Kings are on their own little come up, going to make the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. So that's exciting, right?
Yeah, well, and we're
Super.
trying to we made hats for the Kings too. So we were just saying the other night to drop these off in the team store for Light the Beam, which is kind of their new thing they do when they win a game. And so we're also really thrilled to work with the Kings. So, I got Gary V, Mike got the Sacramento Kings. So we got to make hats for like, our
That's
the people
awesome.
we wanted to. Yeah.
I had to ask because one of my favorite Gary rants and lines of all time, he was talking about how people go to teams to build up their own self-esteem, and he was talking about the Silicon Valley guys not knowing, calling themselves diehard Warriors fans, when I think the line was something to the effect of they wouldn't know who Chris Mullin was if he took a shit on their face.
Yeah.
And which is an epic rant. But it's so true because no
you
Warriors
definitely
fans
get that.
existed. Like,
You get
sorry?
that when any team wins, I think a championship, you get all these new fans, and that's just going to happen no matter what. San Francisco is also a unique situation where it's all this new money, and being a part of the Warriors kind of phenomenon is just it's a lot of fun, and people definitely wrap their identity up in the team. And I know me and Mike have it's a really important part of our life. But you know what? Like the Kings were selling out games when they were garbage, and the Warriors were selling out games at Oracle when they were garbage. And the fans are like, when people make fun of Warriors fans, I'm like, you're tripping. They're so loyal. Also, we have 2 football teams in the Bay, or we did 2 baseball teams in the Bay for a little
Mm-hmm.
while. Days will probably leave. We've always kind of, at least in the immediate Bay Area, always had 1 basketball team. So it's definitely been something that anyone who grew up in the Bay is a Warriors fan through and through. So there's a lot of passionate fans, and it's funny because Gary's a Knicks fan, and if you go to a Knicks game, those fans are like snoozing and they're on their phone. So it's funny to hear it from a Knicks fans that like Warriors fans aren't passionate, because I find Madison Square Garden to be a little sleepy sometimes. So
Interesting, yeah, interesting take. But true, I would imagine. I haven't been to MSG in a long time, but so cool that you guys are able to, pick what you love and work on projects that could lead you down that road. Which brings us to May 2022. So you had a plan. The story starts with you having a plan. The story ends with Gary saying, "We're going to collab," and you guys just a few weeks ago actually released a collab, where actual VeeFriends holders could either get free VeeFriends branded Bartbridge hats or discounted if you're a V2 holder. So let's take me to the moment where you're kind of planning for, you're going to VCon, you're planning for this, like, and at that point, like, what's the best case scenario? You brought hats. I'm seeing the Swaggy Sea Lion hat that I think you gifted to Gary. Like, what was your plan, and what was your like ceiling, like best case scenario in your head at the time?
our plan is, me and Mike have been doing this for a while, where we just kind of like show up with hats and just magically see what will happen. The collab with the Kings was a very similar story, but I think there's 2 parts to it. One part is, NFTs are this new technology, and I know that if you own like a Bored Ape, like the way Snoop does, you own the rights to that ape, so you can make your merchandise and you can do whatever the fuck you want. That belongs to you. And I still till this day don't quite understand like where the IP starts and stops. I think with Gary owns it, and so I was like, really, I've never. When we want to make hats for people, we'll usually like send them a letter and say, "Hey, we make your hats." We'll never make the hat with I've never felt comfortable putting someone's logo, like, you know what I mean, without their permission on a hat. But something about the fact that we had bought the NFTs, at least like poetically, I felt that made sense to me. The intention was honest. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to piggyback. Like I bought these because I liked them and I believed in the cause. And so we made patches for the NFTs that we had, right? You know what I mean? So we had 4. So we brought 4. We made a few hats, and we didn't want to make any money off it. We just thought we'd go out there and pass out some hats. Maybe Gary would see one. Maybe we'd end up backstage. Someone was wearing it, and Gary would say, "Would you get it?" We just thought somehow maybe if we could take the hats of the NFTs we owned, that it would just magically kind of work out, which is kind of our it's always been our strategy.
Yeah, it's like we'll just get there we'll put out the vibe and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, put out the vibe is very important.
Yeah.
Just go with your head up, smiling, and you just see, maybe the way that Gary talks about when he first used to go to South by Southwest. You go and you put out the vibes and you just see what happens. It's not really there's no plan other than let's just put our best foot forward and say yes to everything.
Yeah. So and we said some of this in the recording of the video that they made for us with VeeFriends, but it all didn't make it in. Obviously, it's really quick. But when we got there, we're flying from San Francisco into Minneapolis. By the time we get there, that opening party at the park across the street from the stadium, had been going for hours. So there was this huge, long, snaking line going through the whole park.
I remember, yeah.
Where you could meet Gary, right? And so we hop in at the end, and the people that we're talking to in line were like, "Yeah, we're probably too late." So we have one other person with us, Ashley, who works on the team with us. She stayed in line, and Luke and I kind of worked our way to the front of the line, and we just saw where Gary was in his little tent doing the handshakes and pictures, and so we just kind of stood on the side, and when he looked in our direction, we just pushed a hat over to his hand, and he just reached out and grabbed it, took his hat off, looked at ours and put it right on, and then just kept going. Like,
so we had been in Minneapolis for 10 minutes and Gary's wearing the hat. Like, it just was one of those things where it was just like how
it's not.
I couldn't even imagine that. Yeah.
There was there. I know. I wish I had a more clever story, but we just walked up to him, handed him the hat, and that was that. And I mean, Gary is famous for being accessible. He is amazing. He doesn't create a buffer between him and his fans. And I think that's something that we all really enjoy about him. Yeah.
And so as it started to get darker, we were like, how can we stay in his ear? How can we help him? It's dark in there. Let's get a lamp. And so Luke sends me on a chase around the block in an Uber to go find a lamp at a hotel or at somewhere that I can just bring back a lamp and offer to plug it in.
We were trying to do anything to make ourselves using and to get his attention.
I never found the lamp, but it was just that's the extent we were going. Like we're here. We're gonna keep him. Yeah. Gonna keep in his face.
That's amazing. So, did you get back in line and I know you had a conversation with him eventually. Was that at the opening party, or was that at another day when he opened up a line?
Yeah, that was a more standard way of waiting in line and where everybody was kind of getting their turn with Gary. And so, we did that, and then we're like, hey, we gave you that hat, so we had kind of a reference point. He was like, oh yeah, we love the hat. And I think we ended up waiting in those lines twice. I think it was our second time is when we went to take pictures with him and his pop, Sasha. And as we were kind of walking away, he looked at us in the eye and was like, we're going to collab. So that was kind of where it kind of etched it into stone, at least for us. Yeah.
And was that did you say anything before that, or he just put it out there?
That's all it was. But coming from Gary, he's such a man of his word, that seemed like that was all you needed.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's all a blur when you meet Gary. It's all this stuff, it's really intense, and it's also really quick. And so it's kind of a blur exactly what, but we had a couple other hats that we may have here's some more, and probably said something like, we'd love to work with you or collab in some form. It was, you're there for 25 seconds or something crazy before that. So I think there was something like that said. And then he kind of looked at each of the hats and looked at each of us in the eye and then said that we were going to collab. So it felt genuine, as quick and fast as it was. It still felt real.
And if nothing else, he's rocking the hat. It wasn't he didn't just put the hat on to appease you right then, and then you never saw it again. In one of the most iconic pictures from VCon of him walking out on the stage, you see that the Driven Dragon hoodie, and then he's got the swaggy sea lion hat that you guys gave him.
From you that was definitely a moment when he walked out on stage wearing the hat. That was a very special moment.
Game, set, match.
Yeah.
And to yes, we all lost our minds when that happened. And the people we were sitting next to, we had been kind of talking about what we do, and they were excited for us too. The community is so supportive and great to each other. And when we met him later on that day at the signing booth, he even said, "How did that feel when I came out wearing the hat? That felt great, right?" And
Really,
we were like, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah!"
he
Like he
knows
knew.
what he's doing. Yeah, yeah,
he knows exactly what he's doing.
yeah.
Um, so cool. Like, yeah, I bet losing your mind is probably an understatement in that
Hmm.
moment. And how many? Do you remember roughly how many hats you gave away? Because I know some people after that collab was announced, some people on Twitter was like, "Holy shit! Like I got one. Like I still have it."
That's a good, Mike.
Um, I don't. I think maybe 25 or
Of each image.
of each. Maybe I think there was more of the sea lions um, somehow, but there wasn't a lot. I think in total of all of the I think we had 5 VeeFriends,
With four, so
four,
we made about 100
maybe
hats, maybe.
100 total that we gave out, and then we also were gifting out some of our city hats to people. Like, oh, I'm from Detroit. Hey, here's a
Got
Detroit
it.
hat. Here you go. And just bring open and giving. But I think there was around 100 of the VeeFriends, like kind of prototype, if you will, hats that we brought.
Amazing. So, PSA for anyone going to VCon this year, if someone's handing out something, take it because you never know
Yeah.
what it's going to be. Like, that's a
Right.
sick collectible to have one of the OG Bartbridge hats that was given away at VCon 1. So cool. So, you guys are sitting in a position that hundreds, maybe thousands of people want to be in, striving to be in, pitching an idea. They have a business, pitching a collab, pitching an idea, whether it's, Patient Pigs Barbecue or, this toy or this TV show or this kid's book. Like you guys are the epitome. Have you had people reach out to you and be like, what's the secret sauce?
We,
Uh,
we Ashley, who's not with us right now, runs the influx of DMs and emails. So there may be a lot of that stuff, but I think they did such a great job when they were telling the story, like with the video, that like it kind of tells itself, that
Yep.
here's just what we did. We just had a brand that we really believed in, and combine that with something else that we really believe in. In this case, it was Gary, and I think that those two things is why it worked. Is because we care so much about what we do in our business, and that it's become successful for us, and also, Luke has introduced Gary Vee to me, and we all love what he's doing, and so I think the combination of those two is what sparks the good stuff.
yeah, there's definitely an honesty that I think people can sniff out a phony. You know what I mean? And so if you're not a Gary Vee fan, I think it'll show. And as someone who's listened to Gary Vee forever, it's just it happens naturally. But it wasn't just the collab, because me and Mike have collabed with other businesses, and collab can mean a lot. It can mean that they just co-sign, they put a little story on their thing, and that's that. And
True.
it can just come and go and just disappear. Um, and so, we had heard that Gary said we were gonna collab, and then the next question is, well, okay, now what? You know what I mean? And so like months went by and there was nothing, and then like I ended up emailing Gary. I was like, hey Gary, I was the guy, the hat person. I threw some ideas, and I didn't think he was going to get back. Like when you email Gary, there's part of you that doesn't really believe that Gary's going to
Right.
end it. Like,
Just
he
going out
emails
in the
back, and I'm
universe.
like, wait, this talking to Gary, like, okay, and he was like, had a few little, and he likes really really short, simple emails. Don't send him a big flowery email. You know what I mean? He wants to the point, concise. So I was like, hey, this is who I am. This is what's up. You know what I mean? Like, here's the call to action. Like, what's the next step? He's like, oh, see, he was like, you got to do this. And I'm not very smart. So I kept replying to him. And he's like, Luke, reply all. And I was like, oh. And like, so he's already kind of clowning me. And I was like, totally embarrassed. So then I reply all. And we sort of get connected to his team. And then it kind of disappeared again. The way that communications can go, of it just kind of fizzled. And then, I reached back out, and Gary was kind of frustrated because I guess his team had kind of like forgotten about us. Remember that, Mike? He was like, they thought that he was talking about someone else, and so there was like this miscommunication that created this kind of long delay. and then eventually we got to Zoom with Gary, and so we woke up really early one morning, and we knew we were going to talk to Gary at 6 in the morning, and it's dark out here, and we were excited to talk about the collab, and so we woke up at like 5, put on the loud music, and run around the house and trying to get excited.
Oh, can I say the ambush?
Oh yeah, you have to.
Okay, so I'm originally from New Orleans, and I'm a big Saints fan, and we're like, what do we watch to get hyped up? It's not even 6. Our call was at 6 or something, because we're on the West Coast.
We wanted to have the energy, you know what I mean?
So
sure.
So we put on the video of when the Saints won the Super Bowl, and Sean Payton did the onside kick at halftime, and the name of the play is Ambush. And it's so hype to watch that, especially for me. I'm a Saints freak, so that was like our little jump, and then we started playing loud E40 and Master P in the background at 6 a.m. to get hyped. But it's funny because that was also kind of our what sparked our thought was we wanted to show a bunch of ideas. Like, here's what we could do. So we kind of did our own ambush where we just went crazy designing a bunch of different images to show, like, here's an array of things that we could do for you. And I think that helped show that, we can do a lot of stuff and we can make it look really nice too.
Yeah. And, making these takes time, it costs money. And so,
sure,
everything you're doing, is it's an investment, and so we probably came up with like 30 different images, and we had them embroidered and had them sewn, and then we shipped them out there for him to look at, just hoping that some of them would just spark a thought, and then they would there was a few characters he wanted to work with, and we tried to work with those, and they didn't quite look the way he wanted, and we kind of settled on the ones that we did. And there was actually a lot of back and forth, but it really did start with us in real life sending as many cool ideas as we could think of for him to look at. And then till this day, I still see him like wearing them and then signing them and giving them away. I mean, all those hats you see in the background are all the other ideas that we had come up with.
Yeah, I've seen them, and that it's been very interesting you bring that up because he's been wearing them for a while, and people pointed out. So cool. So just for clarity, did you send him all of those like ideas and iterations prior to the call? So he saw all of it before you had the call, or was this after the call? You just sent him a whole bunch of
that was after the call.
After the call, the call was just kind of to almost like reconvene. There'd been all this kind of like these loose threads had been tossed around, and kind of this time had elapsed a few times where things kind of fizzled out. And I think it was, Gary got on the call, and I think it was Ben that he was talking to, and Gary was joking, and he's looking at us, and he's like, you guys almost got this guy fired because he didn't think that these were the hats that Gary was talking about. So I guess on their end, there was some miscommunication where we had gotten forgotten. But Gary remembered, and Gary was like, these are the guys I want. And so he had our back, which meant the world to us. So that was interesting that he was reprimanding his team for not having followed up with us as much as he wanted.
That in of itself speaks volumes.
Yeah.
He mentioned that this was something that he wanted to look to use for the spring, like for a spring release. So we knew we had some time, and so while I think there was a talk of we're going to put together a list of characters that we want to push, and so while we were waiting for that, we were very proactive, and that's where we did our push of let's just see what we wanted. And we would like to show.
We would spend all day, even when we're driving, whoever's in the passenger seat would just read out the characters, and we would talk about what the character felt like or what the attributes were. And some of his characters, they don't exactly jump off the page with like, cool imagery. Like, how do you make pea salad cool? You know what I mean? And so it was a lot of laughing. I'm like, what the fuck is this image? Are you kidding me? Yeah. And so it was like that for days, if not weeks, of just trying to come up with cool ideas. And then we'd sketch them out. And some would go nowhere, and some we get really excited about. And then eventually, we got to, settle on 5. And he kind of kept learning with the idea of a spring collection or not having to be in there. And I also know all the while you saw him making these drops, and the excitement behind the merch, I think, was slowly waning. You know what I mean? I think the first one people were really excited about, and then it kind of got a little salesy. I think at least it appeared that way to some people. But it's funny because when he works with us, like, he doesn't want any money. Like, he's not doing it to make any money. Like, I think that's a misconception that people have. Like, oh, he's trying to sell. Like, he did. He's losing money on this collab. He did it because he said he liked us, is what he kind of kept saying. He's like, I just want to help you guys out. And all the while he would stop and say, I think this will bring a lot of value to you guys. Like, he really felt like he was like coaching us and trying to help us. Like, it was very unusual in that way. Like, it wasn't your typical business kind of call. Like, I just got off the phone with an event down in SoCal, and it's trying to get a booth, and the conversation is very much about how much is the booth going to cost, and it's like this negotiation. It's like kind of awkward. I
Right.
enjoy that. With Gary, it was never about that. He just wanted. He's like just trying to help us out as much as he can. So it was really awesome.
That's so amazing to hear, but at the same time, it's not surprising at all. Just because, a big theme of this podcast and the conversations I have are, the community and the impact that the community has on each other, but all of that is a trickle down effect from him, right?
Yeah, 100
Everything
percent.
is essentially an extension of what he's putting out into the world. So that's just absolute fire to hear that you didn't have to like, you know, you know, negotiate over percentage points or something or whatever, the negotiation would be. That's amazing. Uh, so with that said, like what from a business perspective, like have you seen uh, impact since? I know it just happened, like, it feels like yesterday. But have you seen, more traffic, questions, inquiries, things like that?
It's interesting. Well, there's also another piece of the whole puzzle we can talk about going to New York and everything, and doing that part of it to try to really solidify the collab, um, which we'd be happy to talk about. But as far as the business goes, it's fun. It was never it. I think most things we do are not like a means to an end in and of themselves. They're always just like, if we do this with the right intention, good things will continue to happen. Very, very Gary B style. And so I think for us, we won't be able to answer your question until a few years down the road when maybe we're doing a collab with Busta Rhymes because Gary told him that we were the one. Who knows where it's going to go? But like, to me, Gary's got so many connections. I mean, if it ended right now, like, I'm stoked, I'm thrilled. And again, this wasn't really about. It was more about just being able to collab with him, and picking his brain. And have we seen an uptick in sales? The way that they did the site, it was kind of, we divided it into two. So there was Gary's, the 5 day sale, and then there's all the hats that we make. And there wasn't a ton of cross pollination. Like, we looked at the orders. There was a few people who ordered one of Gary's hats and one of the hats that we make, but it wasn't a ton. I think people really went to go get the VeeFriend hats is what it felt like. But I do think in the long run, it's incredible exposure.
Of course. Um, I don't want to take the comb out and like ask you about every single interaction, how many times you talk to Gary, whatever. But I'm just out of curiosity because he's always providing so much value. And one of my favorite pieces of content that he does is his 4Ds, where people come to him from a business perspective and he's just giving everything that he has, like that. So I'm curious, like, in your talks or your strategizing and marketing and how you're going to roll this out, like, was there anything that he said or did that you were like, oh wow, like that's a really good idea, like?
That's a good question. I mean, I do think the pre-sale is kind of an interesting way to do things. We've never done anything like that before. In terms of getting the orders before you make anything. Then you know exactly what to make. I think that's kind of a fun way to do it, and then it will never be made again. Like, it's definitely more of a collector's item. And that's something that I think is, me and Mike, I grew up loving baseball cards. Mike's more comics and collectibles, but we do love the idea of having something that you can't buy on Amazon. If you give someone a present, they can get it on Amazon. It's not really much of a present. But if you
Mm,
have something that no one can buy, I found that to be just not so much from a business standpoint, but just from an excitement standpoint. The idea of participating in something that was like special, that was really that I found that really heartening. Yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah.
No, it makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense.
And
So
other than that, I think it's also just watching him operate. The way that he makes decisions so quickly and moves to the next thing and doesn't, me, I'll go to bed thinking about a thought, chewing on the thought, and the next day I'll still be thinking about it while I'm driving. I'm thinking about that same thing. And I kind of have fun doing that. And I, I enjoy it. And it feels like it's helpful. Maybe I'm making progress, but I think he's taught me that's not the way to move forward with an idea. Make a decision and go to the next one, Yeah.
micro speed, macro
Yeah.
patience.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way. It's crazy how when you go into his office, you get ushered in, you do the thing. He's like, "Okay, what's going on?" And then you get ushered out. And it feels kind of impersonal, but that's the only way that that he's able to do as many things as he does. Otherwise, it'd be impossible.
Mm,
Yeah, and within that, like we got to meet a handful of people on the team. Shout out to Ben and Sanan and a few others that like they're so great to work with. Like
Yeah.
they helped facilitate, the negotiations for what the price was or how we were going to ship or what's the code for the series 1 holders that get this and that, and like, so we also got to build some cool relationships with the people that work up there. And and I feel like that's just, part of the whole deal was something like that.
that's awesome. It's such a cool story, and I think one that you guys will appreciate more and more at the further removed you get from it. To your point, Luke, like you don't know what's going to happen, like who you're going to meet next because of this.
Yeah, it is
Amazing.
surreal. Like you said, there's so many people that want to be in our shoes. I think it's something we have to kind of remind ourselves because it was like, at least the initial connection was oddly easy. And I know it's not. Like, and there are people I've been trying to get to forever and I can't even get their attention. And so it is, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that one just clicked somehow. It's like magic. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you're doing many things right, and yeah, I'm just so happy to see this happen. Are you guys going to VCon
Oh yeah,
Yes, yes,
this
absolutely.
year?
yes.
Yeah, can't
Awesome.
wait.
Are you gonna have hats in tow?
We're gonna bring some hats, and we're working on possibly having a get together at some location out there that we'll announce when we get that, if we get that. So everyone who's listening, follow our page and look for an update. But yeah, we'd love to have like a VeeFriends Bartbridge get together somewhere in Indy while we're there. I think that'd be a lot of fun to just kind of
That'd be phenomenal.
talk to everyone and get to meet people who got the hats and have a nice drink.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it is a very, very special community. And with that, I like one of the questions that I always like to ask people because the word gets thrown around so much, especially in this Web3 world. What does community mean to you? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in. What does that word mean?
It's funny. I knew you were going to say use the word community. It does get thrown around a lot. I do. I think it's a good question. It's not something I have an answer to, but I think it goes back to maybe the feeling that I was describing working with Mike, just that safe space where there's no bad ideas and let's try this. Oh hey, what if we get him a lamp? Then he'll notice us because he can't take pictures. We'll be the people who gave him a lamp. And Mike's like, great idea. And I think that just if you can have that with I have it with one person here sitting next to me, and it's the most valuable thing that I have in my whole world. And maybe you have it with your parents or your friends, but in this case, with Web3, you kind of have it with strangers, so to speak. But we all have listened to Gary Vee, so we have that in common, and he preaches all these really, really good qualities. And I think the idea of this community is us embodying those qualities, and VCon coming together, and obviously through Discord and these other channels. But I think just trying to support one another, and if you can, Mike's really good at this. I'm not, but Mike's good at being in a room and seeing everybody. And if somebody seems to need something, he can offer it to them without them even asking. And if you can scan your peer group and you can do that, like the best things will come your way. And I get the sense that that's kind of what's brewing at VCon. Not to sound corny, but Burning Man has a little bit of that, and becomes the only place I've ever been that had a little bit of that feeling where people are like excited to help and to
Mm,
give back.
Yeah, I think my thought would be all of that, and it's like-minded people that share a common liking for something, and so we're all gonna gather around this thing, share similar thoughts, and also offer our own perspective, and that is usually met with openness or maybe a challenge, but in like a encouraging way. But I think there's a thing that's bringing us all together, and we're all here to support each other through it. And one of the things I felt when we were at VCon One, I don't know if you went to this, but they had the Steve Aoki show one of the nights, kind of right near the stadium, and
I missed it, unfortunately.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
we were
wasn't a
in
lucky
there.
winner.
We were in there getting cake all over our shoes and clothes as it was getting tossed into the crowd. But one of the things you could tell instantly, because it wasn't just VeeFriends, VCon people there. It was an event that anyone could get into, right? Or how, I don't know. Anyways, you could tell who was there from VCon and who wasn't, just
Yeah.
by the way they would approach, the way they made space if you needed to get by, the way they would look at you. It was almost like night and day between the people who were and who weren't. And that, I
Mhm.
think, is like the epitome of a community. Is like, you know who your tribe is, you know who your people are. And it's not like you don't want anyone else in it, but you definitely feel your folks.
Yeah, well said.
I love that. I love that. It's so true. It was. I've been to many events, uh, and just the vibes, people, eye contact, the whole deal. Like you hit the nail right in the head, Mike.
Mm.
Amazing, amazing. So real quick, I'm doing this thing now on my VFam sessions Twitter where I'm doing 55 tips in 55 days, just for if you're going for the first time, just to help people get ready for VCon to help maximize their experience. I'm curious, since you guys are veterans now and are going back for year two, and you obviously did very well at VCon one. I'm curious if you have a tip for people to get the most out of their VCon experience.
Oh man, I think two. One is what Mike just said is plan ahead. Like we were trying to figure out what was going on at night, and I want to do more of this. But the Steve Aoki one was a hit because somebody, I think we heard on one of Gary Vee's podcasts that it was happening, and so we got tickets. And so if you can do that ahead of time, that helps a lot. But also I know that like as things grow, access becomes harder. Like we used to go down, at Oracle when the Warriors were in Oakland, and it was easier to get access to the players. You could walk right on the court, and now they moved over to Chase, and you can't get anywhere around the players. And this like last year was VCon one. That was your best chance to have access. Like on the side little area there where all the people go on. We were trying
Yep.
to give our hats to all the luminaries, all the celebrities, because we did our research of where they were from to try to give them a hat from their hometown. And I have a feeling when that's VCon 10, you're probably going to have a hard time getting to those people. So, this is VCon 2. This is as good of a chance as you're going to get to meet these people. So, do your homework. If there's somebody you want to have access to, figure out what they're into, figure out the timing, and you will have a chance to talk to that person. And this is one of the few events where they're going to be in a position where they're going to, engage with you. And it is having access to people like that is really powerful, and it's not. I would take advantage of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
love
guess
it.
one
Anything from
one
you?
thing I would say, and someone asked this question on Twitter, what's one thing that you would say? And my thing was, when you're in line waiting, unless you need to like really check something, don't just stare into your phone. Like talk to the people next to you,
Yeah.
because like we met people from all over the world, but like we made friends from people in Toronto, and now if we go to Toronto, we got a place to stay, and they can come to our house, or like we met connections with another person and gifted them a hat and ended up making hats for their business later, and so just like being open to talking to your neighbor, and remember that we're all in the same community, so it's probably going to be okay.
Bingo. Love it. Um, I want to be mindful of your time. I do a to wrap up. I do a micro macro kind of spitfire session, but before that, I do want to thank both of you again for your time. I know you guys are just cranking and have orders to fill, and more collabs to find, and biz dev and socials. Everything that goes into running a business, and really appreciate your time. and hopefully we can jam at VCon in Indy, and it will definitely keep the VeeFam community posted if you do throw a satellite event. But yeah, I'm just going to give you a couple. If one or both of you want to shout out, you could give a quick answer, or uh, take the microscope out and give a real detailed answer. All right. So here we go. First, favorite teacher you had and one reason why.
Favorite teacher.
Teacher.
Oh, I had this teacher. He was a drama teacher as well as a English teacher um, in high school, and he was so eccentric, like way over the top. But he was able to see people's talents and put them in the places where they would shine, as opposed to forcing them to do things that weren't what they were good at, just to push them and see if they could. He's like, "You're really good at doing this. Boom, I'm moving you over here to do that. You're really good at playing this type of role. I'm going to put you in that type of role." And yeah, and he saw me as an artist, and let me do all kinds of promo art material for school activities, which I think was great for my, helping me in my confidence in myself to be an artist as I continued to grow up.
That's a good answer. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's funny. School was always tough, and I was never really good at any one thing. I mentioned earlier being unemployable. I never found that one path that really, that I could just chew on, sink my teeth into. And one of the things that I think saved me was podcasts. Is ever since the advent of podcasts, you can put on you can have the most intelligent people in the world talking about any subject, and it's free. You know what I mean? And I do a lot of driving, and so when I put that Gary Vee is probably number one, but I think we all have our list. Lately I've listened to My First Million. Those guys are so fun. Talking about ideas, and when I'm driving and I've got a good podcast on, that's like my favorite thing in the world. Like, I know that's kind of an odd answer. You think of being in the classroom, but I think school might be tough for some people, and there's other ways to have teachers. You don't even have to meet them. And so for me, just the podcast, like we're doing now, I think it's probably one of the most valuable teachers I've ever had in my life.
I love that. I love that. And it's so true, at least for me too. Um, Usually I ask what brand or influencer, if they created a token, would you drop or an NFT, would you drop everything and run and mint it right away? But for you guys, I'll change it up. I guess you could answer, or like, is there a brand or influencer person out there that you would love to do a clothing collab or a hat collab with?
I would love to do something with Howard Stern. I've been listening to Howard for 20 years. I've done artwork for their website and for like their social media a few years back when they were using it. But I would love to do something that was actually like a Howard Stern product, just because he's taught me so much just about being yourself and owning who you are, and being able to laugh at yourself, which is I think is a really huge key. Howard Stern for sure. Hey now.
Yeah. That's a good answer. I think lately I've been kind of I used to collect a lot of records, and I really loved, like, that, our album cover art. If Neil Young like were like re-released Harvest and have us make like a hat, you know what I mean, for it, or something like that, or some of these old iconic albums, like whether it was Paul McCartney asked us to make like an old Beatles album cover and put it on a hat, that would be the coolest fucking shit in the world. So yeah, I've been really liking like bands. I would love to do more work with them. Um, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, in terms of going out and buying an NFT, it's all trust. And Gary's just really, he's really earned my trust. And so I don't think there's many people that really compete with him on that level. But as far as making hats, lately I've been looking really towards bands and music. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll squeeze in one more. Would you rather have a 2 hour group dinner access with Gary? So let's say like you two and eight other people, or would you rather have a 10-minute one-on-one?
I want to go to dinner. I'm ready for dinner. Yeah, I mean, that's just my thing would be dinner. Because, sometimes when it's a little loose and there's not like this compact, quick thing that you have a tight window to squeeze in, so I got to make sure I get the right things in. Sometimes just having that open space and other people to maybe open up the conversation could help the ideas grow. Plus, there's food and a drink.
Yeah,
Food and drink never hurts.
yeah, no, I mean, I had some one-on-one time with Gary, and I was not particularly charming. I get so nervous, man. So yeah, it would have to be dinner, the one-on-one, and also I just enjoy being like kind of watching. I don't have. I mean, again, I think there's this weird phenomenon where you have a question for Gary, right? And like when I meet him, I'll ask him the question. But then you start to realize, like, I think we all know what he's gonna say. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's like you kind of already know the answer. It's
Yep.
so it's more about just being present, I think, and absorbing the way that he goes. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the way that he goes about moving through the day and engaging with people, maybe the way that the person takes his order and the way he talks to the server. Um, those would be the kind of notes that I'd be taking. It's not so much the answer of what's the meaning of life or, should I quit my job? It's like he's answered that so many times. When's the price of VF2 going to go up? It's like he's already done those so many times. And I think it's more about observing the energy. That's kind of what I get the most from. So yeah, I agree with Mike on that.
Awesome. I love that. You guys, like, it's very easy to see how he connect with you guys very early, and went right to work. You know, extending the arm and working with you guys. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story. And it's one I think a lot of people will be talking about for a long time. And yeah, we will be looking out for you guys at VCon. Thanks so much.
Right
Well,
on.
thanks,
Thanks,
Rob.
Rob.